Photographers are like conductors. They live to be very old if you don't kill them. And you know, as a reason, I used to know Toscanini. And the maestro, during a concert, between intermissions, had to take a bath, a shower, because he was soaking wet. And photography is like conducting. It's a mixture of very intensive thought and physical activity, which makes you perspire. And I don't know if it's a perspiring is good for you, but if you take conductors, they live to be very old. Photographers, Stieglitz, Steichen, Alfred Eisenstadt galloping around at 87, Dmitri Kessel, 82. Photographers do live to be very old because I think it's a double thing. It's a physical work and a very interesting mental. I think a combination, like with conductors, unless you kill them, and that's a different story.
Phillips didn't mind dangerous assignments, but they had to be important dangerous assignments.
I just come from behind the lines, back from Greater Germany, where I'd photographed the blowing up of a bridge. And Life said, oh, here's a treat for you. Go out of Cafe Society to Coney Island. There was this group of charming young lady and people, and I was there having a good time. And they got this tremendous roller coaster. And he said, how about it? I said, yeah, mine. I said, pay 50 cents to have my stomach in my mouth. I've had enough of that experience. Pay money to be scared? No. I mean, I've been scared enough in my life, so you go and I'll wait for you. That's how the whole thing started. It sort of became a joke. See, when you're a professional, I once said I was a Genovese mercenary, like a Genovese mercenary. They paid me well to do a good job. I might get killed, but I'll never get ulcers, because you just do a job. And it's part of a job, you know, as every job. You know, when they shot the old king of Italy, he said it was a risk of a profession. Well, if you're a photojournalist nowadays, there are risks. And you try to figure them out, you try to figure out yards and all of that. But you see, I learned one great thing: you get in it, and once you're in it, I mean, you know, when you're on a plane flying behind the lines, there's no use worrying. You're there, and you're going to land in 6 hours, or you're dead. So there's not much point in worrying. The thing is to get started and go, and then you do it. Scared, everybody's scared, you know. I only met one man who wasn't scared, and he was crazy. It's perfectly true. I remember my boss came back and said to me once, you aren't scared, are you? I said, you think I'm a damn fool? When you're taking pictures, you know if you're doing something good, because you suddenly get into it, and you don't even have to see the pictures. You want to see them, of course, but you know, and it's all there, and you're shooting, and then consciously you're putting a whole story together, and you get tremendous sense of excitement. And this, I'm talking now like when I photographed the Battle of Haifa, just before when the Israelis attacked the city of Haifa to take it over, or during a fighting in your city, you see these extraordinary things and you take pictures. I'll say something here. I think people say, is a camera impartial, is a photographer impartial? Well, a photographer is just as impartial, camera's as impartial as a typewriter, a man who handles it. I think probably the one moment where a photographer really doesn't think is if he's in the middle of a battle or some terrific picture. I mean, let's say something like Melee incident. I think a photographer, if some American do something awful to some kid, you take a picture. He wouldn't think, because there's a picture. A photographer takes the picture that's happening. Whether he has afterthoughts it should be published or not is something else. The good photographer shoots what is suddenly important, and you don't say, is it good for us or bad for us? You don't think of propaganda, you think really of getting a great picture. And generally it's not his decision if a picture's on or not, that's up to the editor. So I think that's the way it is. Photographers get ripped off. I mean, every photographer's been ripped off, but I've probably been ripped off in the most original way you could imagine. In 1940, I photographed Gypsy Rosie. She was stripping such benefit for Britain. And I took a picture, Life ran it a full page, and I never thought about it again. And then right after the end of the war, I was driving into Poland, and I came to a town called Wrocław, which had been a German town called Breslau, of 750,000. There had been a huge tank battle with the Russians, and all the Germans had evacuated. And there was maybe 1,000 to 2,000 Poles in the town at the time. Now, to be in a city of 750,000 that's empty is pretty horrifying. You know, I drove down what was a main street, beautiful solid buildings, And then something very odd, because suddenly you realize the roof had gone, the windows had been blown out, the doors were open. So I get out of my Jeep and I walk into one. And if you've ever seen a house that's been looted, you know the mattresses on the floor, gutted, there's papers, there's broken furniture. And suddenly in the middle, what do I see is this, naked, USA naked. And the first thing I notice, it's my picture. And I look at a book, and it's a German propaganda book with all the zany pictures of America. 3 of them were mine, taken out of life. And the idea was to show the Americans were degenerate and couldn't win a war. It was a propaganda book. And I was startled, you know. So that was some ripoff. But the last thing you'd expect to get in a city in Poland and to suddenly find your picture in a German magazine, German book.